What if Anakin Skywalker was raised as a Mandalorian? That's our story for today, and let's get right into it. But first, are you looking for some new high-quality Star Wars art for your house? Well, then look no further than Gallery 94. From an awesome variety of canvas or art prints, Gallery 94 brings you Star Wars landscapes that fit anywhere in your house without sacrificing any style. And Gallery was kind enough to send me another landscape portrait to show off to all of you guys, and this is probably my favorite design, with the beautiful snow covering up a fallen Star Destroyer in the background. It's really subtle, and yet so cool to just check out all the detail that went into all of this. And as you can see, the sizes range quite a bit. If you want big or small, well, you're in luck. I love these, and they just fit so well as both Star Wars and overall decorations for the place. We've got the Endor Forest with an Imperial transport, Hoth with a crashed Star Destroyer, Dagobah with Yoda's hut, Bespin with Cloud City, Scarif with the Citadel Tower, and of course Tatooine with Kenobi's hut. But they're all so well done, and the artist of these landscapes wanted to create Star Wars art that his interior design wife would be proud to hang in the living room. And that's extremely relatable to me, as my girlfriend is much more open to these being placed all around the house, since they're not right in your face. These canvases are super high quality, and the sizes go all the way up to 40 by 60 inches, and also are available as a 3-panel triptych. And whether you want Hoth, Endor, Tatooine, or any other one, you can get 20% off with code GALAXY20 at checkout, or click the link in the description. That's right, even though the Black Friday sale is over, you can still get the full Black Friday deal of 20% off with code GALAXY20 on any of these wonderful landscapes. Our story begins on Tatooine as the young infant Anakin Skywalker is only 2 years old. Shmi, his mother, was watching him play in the sand just outside of their home, when suddenly a huge popping explosion was heard above them. 2 ships were fighting in the sky, and one of them was suddenly crashing into the ground. A group of Mandalorian security fighters tracked pirates that were disrupting supply ships all the way to Tatooine, and the Mandalorians now attacked them. The pirates shot down the Mandalorian ship, and as it was descending to the ground, the 6 Mandalorians used their jetpacks to evacuate. One of the Mandalorians, a woman in her late teens named Ursa Wren, saw the ship was descending down towards a series of homes, and as it crashed, Ursa immediately began search and rescue of all the people that were hit. And one of these heavily injured people was Shmi Skywalker. When she saw Ursa, Shmi held up Anakin, who survived, and Shmi told Ursa to take him away from here. Shmi said his name is Anakin Skywalker, and Shmi would die as Ursa looked at the infant. Young Anakin would become a Mandalorian foundling. About 15 years later, Anakin Skywalker was truly a Mandalorian, just like any of his brothers or sisters here on Mandalore. When he was taken back to Mandalore, Ursa Wren ultimately decided that he would be raised by her and her husband, Ulrich. At the time, neither of them were ready to be parents, but Ursa was gifted the boy, and so she chose to keep him. Anakin would be raised in a Mandalorian house that was very in favor of the warrior ways of the old Mandalorians. But as Anakin was raised, he actually didn't have much of an affinity for the old ways. Instead, in his many hours of study, Anakin instead came to think differently than his found family, and he was in favor of the new Mandalorian ways of peace. Over the years, Anakin would begin to express his beliefs, and Ursa was a bit disappointed that her son could not see the truth. Mandalore needed to be a warrior world, she thought. There was simply no other way. But Anakin was stubborn. He thought he was right. Either way, Anakin would have an excellent upbringing. His parents were learning to be parents, but the people of Mandalore helped them raise Anakin however they could, and Anakin was happy. In school, Anakin would make many friends, and he was known as a sort of excitable, friendly boy with a big heart. Everyone liked to be around Anakin. But around age 12, Anakin became certain of something. He knew he was different than everyone else. He didn't exactly know how, but Anakin could just feel it. It was as if sometimes he could see things before they happened. His reflexes were far better than anyone else. Even reading the thoughts of others was something Anakin came to realize that not everyone could do. And Anakin wouldn't tell anyone of these powers, as he eventually came to deeply study the war between the Jedi and the Mandalorians. When Anakin would read about the Jedi, he realized their powers were very similar to what he felt within himself, and this would give Anakin great fear. The years would continue to go by, and Anakin would continue to hide his powers, though the more Anakin noticed them, the more he got curious and would try to explore them. Anakin studied Mandalorian texts about Jedi for hours every single night. He would try lifting objects up with his hand, but he couldn't do it. Anakin seemed to have all the mind powers, but none of the physical ones, as it was extremely hard to unlock these powers alone. Around age 18 now, Anakin had moved out as he was going to a university, but his childhood home with his mother Ren and father Ulrich was close by. Anakin would often try to visit them, but they were rarely home these days. Anakin found this to be strange, and when he did eventually ask them about it, the parents just said they were out at the market or something for the day. But Anakin was smart, and of course he could somewhat read the thoughts and emotions of his mother as she lied to him. She was clearly somewhere she wasn't supposed to be, but Anakin decided not to pursue this any further quite yet. Instead, he stayed away from home, and Anakin would relieve his stress by taking up self-defense classes at his university. At first it was just to see what it was like, as a few of Anakin's friends had joined, but Anakin was immediately a natural. More than a natural, he was excellent. He first joined a sword fighting class, and within days, Anakin was besting everyone in this class who'd been practicing for their whole lives. Anakin would see every swing before it happened, and his physical strength went far beyond his looks. He was extremely strong. His speed with his practice sword was insane, and the person who previously was at the top of the class before Anakin joined became quite angry with Anakin. He didn't like this outsider coming in and making him look bad. So one day after class, Anakin was walking back to university when Rin Orvek, the previous top defense student, and 4 of his friends cornered Anakin, telling him he is impressive, but it takes real skill to fight 5 opponents at once. Anakin basically told them to buzz off, as they weren't in class for this, but as he was turning to leave, he was pushed to the street. Anakin slammed his face on the Duracrete, and the pain was immense. This made Anakin quite angry. He didn't ask for any of this, but as one of them moved in to kick Anakin in the ribs, Anakin flipped back up, kicking them down, and Anakin turned, instinctively pushing forward, unleashing a wave of energy. All 5 students flew backwards, crashing into the wall, quickly running away in fear. Anakin looked to his hands, and he took off running. How did he do that? But as Anakin ran, it felt as if he truly had unlocked something. His running became quicker than any human, and as Anakin reached a dead end, he closed his eyes, and he just jumped. The 15-foot wall in front of Anakin was cleared, and he yelped in excitement as he jumped up a few more stories, and all of a sudden, the 18-year-old boy was standing atop one of the tallest buildings in the city, overlooking it all from a place he'd never imagined. Anakin sat down on the roof, looking to his hands. He was special. There was no denying it. But Anakin was suddenly caught off guard as someone with a jetpack flew up here to find Anakin. It was a Mandalorian royal guard, and he took off the mask, introducing himself as Zaid Kryn. He has been watching Anakin for a long time, as the young boy has shown promising signs of having the Force. Anakin looked shocked, but Zaid said that he took many shifts at the local library. Anakin often left with many books about the Jedi, and so Zaid said he watched Anakin in self-defense classes, until now he's shown his true power. Anakin asked why. Why watch him like this? And Zaid said that is why he is here. He told Anakin that he believes in Duchess Satine and her desire for a peaceful, pacifist Mandalore. But there are many that do not, and those people want to completely disrupt Satine's work. Anakin said he knows this, and he knows his own parents are among those that oppose Satine. But now, Zaid said it goes much deeper than anyone knows. He has been investigating the opposition to Satine, and he tracked them back to the moon of Concordia. Anakin looked confused. Concordia was where the old warrior Mandalorians were exiled to after the Civil War, but they were thought to have died out. Instead, Zaid said they have built an entire movement called the Death Watch. Someone from the outside is giving them weapons and funds to build up this movement, in hopes of soon overthrowing Satine to take over Mandalore. Anakin couldn't believe it. He asked who was helping them. Zaid said he wasn't sure, but he thinks the Death Watch is participating in the Clone War. Anakin knew of this war. It started a few months ago, between the Republic and the Separatists. Of course, Mandalore was neutral, and he asked Zayd what exactly he needs from him. Zayd said it was simple. Anakin will be the one who will bring down the Death Watch. And so, for the next year or so, Anakin would spend hours every single day with Zayd and a few other Mandalorian royal guards loyal to Satine, understanding there was an outside threat that must be dealt with. They would train every single day in sword fighting, shooting, non-conventional tactics like cables, jetpacks, rockets, and Anakin would soon, finally, for the first time, put on a suit of armor. His parents always kept a suit for Anakin that would fit him, as they always hoped he would understand their ways. And Anakin finally took the suit, painting it a sandy brown with a touch of yellow and orange to represent where he came from. Anakin knew very little of Tatooine, but he did know it was his first home. This year would fly by, and by the end of it, Anakin was a truly elite fighter, not just in the traditional ways, but an expert with the jetpack, and his suit was equipped with all sorts of gadgets that Anakin grew to love and know. And at the end of this year, Anakin, Zayd, and the other 50 royal guards that were now with them knew that it was time. The Death Watch was sure to be advancing on Satine and Mandalore any week now, so they decided to attack first. They went against Satine's wishes for peace, but the Mandalorian guards didn't tell her they were doing this. It was for her protection after all, and they knew she would probably try to stop them. So they went alone. Anakin and the 50 guards took a ship to Concordia, and upon a nighttime arrival to the moon, Anakin and the guards left their transport, and they spread into the camp. It wouldn't take long for a fight to break out all around. There were around 100 members of the Death Watch at this point early in their formation, and they were suddenly under attack. Anakin and the guards knew there was no making peace with these people. They wanted the Duchess dead, and so, around the camp, fights to the death were breaking out. Mandalorians and royal guards killing each other quickly, and Anakin moving around, flipping through the air to shoot down anyone in his path. He flew his jetpack in the air, fighting a group of 3, and he shot down all 3 of them, before suddenly Anakin heard the ignition of a blade, and his jetpack was suddenly cut right through. Anakin fell hard to the ground, using the Force to stop his landing as he rolled to his feet to face whoever this was. And Anakin looked to see Pre Vizsla landing in front of him, with the ancient darksaber in his hands. Vizsla yelled out to the entire camp, telling everyone to stop this madness, and his booming voice did indeed make everyone stop for a moment. Vizsla flew up with his jetpack, and he said this will be settled in a duel between the leaders. Vizsla looked to Anakin, then told the guards that if he wins, then the guards will accept defeat and be exiled out of the system. Then he said that if Anakin wins, then he wins the darksaber, rightful control of Mandalore and its people, and the members of Death Watch will leave forever. Anakin looked around. He saw the guards nodding their faith to him, and Anakin noticed the blood covering his armor. He saw he has become the very thing that he once stood against. But Anakin was seeing that this was inevitable. The Death Watch made him become this version of himself. So, Anakin accepted the duel, and he looked behind Pre Vizsla now to see his parents. Anakin realized that he should have put it together sooner. They were a part of this group trying to take down Satine. Anakin told himself they were no longer his parents, they were traitors, and he readied himself for the duel of his life. This would be to the death. The dark glow, the eerie hum of the darksaber was surrounding the area as Vizsla raised it. The warriors of both sides waited with nervous anticipation, and Vizsla lunged first, the darksaber slicing through the air, his jetpack propelling him forward to have great speed on the swing of the saber. Anakin rolled to the side, deploying a grappling line to yank a pole down between them, forcing Vizsla to disengage momentarily. The pole landed between them, and both jumped back at each other, as Anakin was able to kick Vizsla to the ground. Vizsla shot his flamethrower at Anakin to get him to back away, and the two warriors recalibrated, each calculating their very next move. Vizsla unleashed a storm of small wrist rockets, but Anakin's quick reflexes and a force-enhanced leap carried him far above the explosion. Using his own gauntlet's flamethrower now, Anakin countered, forcing Vizsla to retreat mid-air. The jetpack allowed Vizsla to maintain his mobility, but Anakin manipulated his environment with unsuspecting power. He hurled a crate with the Force, momentarily staggering Vizsla as he was grasping that Anakin had powers far beyond his armor. But the duel had already begun. There was no getting out of this, and Vizsla knew his family line was full of killing Jedi. This would just be another. so Vizsla ran back in with a whirling series of darksaber strikes, and Anakin met them head-on with his own abilities. Vizsla swung, and Anakin held the blade in the air with the Force. Then he ducked under it, sweeping Vizsla's leg. Vizsla countered with a cable, wrapping Anakin with it, as he fired his pistol right for Anakin's head. Anakin broke free, barely dodging the shots, as his Force abilities kept him on equal footing, despite the darksaber's dangerous power. And with a Force-augmented burst of strength, Anakin waited for Vizsla to fly in the air, and he caught Vizsla mid-flight, slamming him to the ground with a bone-rattling impact. Vizsla's jetpack exploded, making the warrior skid across the ground as he got back up, activating his whipcord, but Anakin grabbed the cord and pulled it forward. Vizsla flew through the air, landing at Anakin's feet, and Anakin reached out, pulling the darksaber into his hands. Vizsla tried to get back up, but Anakin reached out with his other hand, now lifting up Vizsla by his throat, choking him, before stabbing him through the gut to kill him. Vizsla fell dead, and Anakin raised up the darksaber, declaring that this was for Mandalore. The guards and all of the Death Watch members dropped to a knee, declaring their loyalty to Anakin, the rightful owner of the darksaber. And Anakin looked around, asking who was helping the Death Watch rise to power. A younger woman called Bo-Katan spoke up, saying that it was Dooku, leader of the Separatists. Anakin nodded his appreciation. Then he looked around. There were around 100 survivors here, and he told them that no outsiders will ever buy control of Mandalore again. Dooku must fall, so the galaxy sees that Mandalore is not to be messed with. The people were rallied behind him, and so, before long, Duchess Satine would watch with a deep sadness as a Keldabe-class battleship rose up from a Mandalorian hangar that was shut down so long ago. Anakin was leading the fighters in her name, but the group failed to consider that this was the opposite of what Satine would have wanted. But the ship jumped to hyperspace for Sereno, and Dooku was informed that the Death Watch was approaching the planet to meet with him. Immediately, Dooku had a terrible feeling about this. His interactions with the dangerous group were already risky, and so he told the fleet protecting Sereno to destroy this approaching ship. The Mandalorian ship emerged and immediately was under fire, but the Keldabe Mandalorian battleship was extremely strong, and the Royal Guards controlled the cannons, while Anakin and members of the Death Watch, including Bo-Katan and his parents, got into starfighters and flew towards the blockade. After a long fight, Anakin and the others pierced the blockade and flew deep into Sereno, right for Dooku's castle. The Sith Lord readied his droid army on the ground, and he watched from the castle as Mandalorian fighters, led by someone mysterious, suddenly began ripping through the droids with ease. So Dooku decided to join this battle himself. He moved down to the ground, shooting lightning from his hands directly into a group of 5 Mandalorians. They were defeated, and he ignited his blade to cut through 2 more. But suddenly, a series of blaster bolts were fired at him. Dooku deflected them, and he was barely able to block a sudden swing from this Mandalorian wielding the darksaber. Anakin rolled away, readying himself once more as Dooku pointed the red blade at him, saying his fate is sealed to die here today. Anakin ran forward, but he was not alone. As he and Dooku dueled, Bo-Katan and both of Anakin's parents flanked Dooku. They fired their weapons perfectly to hit Dooku in the back and in the shoulder. He was overwhelmed. His droids were being ripped apart, and Dooku reached out with a Force choke, grabbing both of Anakin's parents, and he threw Anakin hard into a wall. Dooku then killed both of the parents, and Bo-Katan was able to get away, firing shots at Dooku, while Anakin, angered more than ever before, ran back in, slicing Dooku across the leg. Dooku fell to a knee, and Anakin stabbed through his back, killing the Separatist leader in hatred. Anakin looked around, and the Death Watch Mandalorians were chanting his name, and Anakin looked down to the blade, shaking his head. This is not what he wanted to become. He did this for Mandalore, not for power, and this moment was extremely sobering for Anakin. This was the life his parents always wanted, not what he wanted. They gave up their lives for this battle. Anakin didn't want any part of it anymore, so he got everyone back on board the Mandalorian battleship, and they took off back for Mandalore. Upon arrival, Anakin would speak to the Death Watch members, saying his deal with Vizsla stands. They are to leave Mandalore in exile forever. The members were shocked, but they had no choice. Anakin thanked them for helping on Sereno, but they were exiled. And on Mandalore, Anakin and the guards would meet with Satine, as Anakin sincerely apologized, saying he got caught up in his emotions, but this is not who he is. He was loyal to the peace movement, and he surrendered the blade to Satine. Anakin would become the leader of the Royal Guard, and Satine would expand the warrior ways just a bit to allow for Mandalore to be ready should a group like the Death Watch ever rise again. Mandalore was neutral, and out in the galaxy, the Separatists would begin to crumble in the following months without Dooku. It wouldn't take long for Grievous to be killed in battle by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the Separatists would be forced to surrender. Investigations into Dooku and the Separatists would somehow eventually lead the Jedi to discover Darth Sidious to be Palpatine, and Mace Windu would fight and kill the Sith Lord without outside interference. Within a year, the war was over, and Anakin would soon meet a Jedi for the first time, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would leave the Jedi Order to live with Satine here on Mandalore. Anakin and Obi-Wan would become excellent friends, and Obi-Wan would help Anakin to control his emotions and his Force abilities, teaching him as they helped the Mandalore Royal Guard grow stronger to keep the planet safe. The Republic was under the leadership of Chancellor Amidala, and Mandalore would have excellent relations with her and the Republic, with Satine, Obi-Wan, and Anakin leading the way. And folks, that is our story for today. As for Maul, he just never is found. Him and Savage just die out in space. You know, they're found by the Mandalorians during the Clone Wars, but not in this one because, they're dead. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this story. I really wanted to focus on a path that wasn't super dark for Anakin. I wanted to take the approach of like he really falls into a trap of violence, but ultimately, I think he didn't like go through the grueling childhood on Tatooine. He didn't go through the Jedi like holding him back, and he doesn't really have a desire to fight. So that's what I wanted to take with this. Like, I don't know, it just kind of gets caught up in it, does what he has to do, but ultimately goes back to the peaceful ways because he believes it to be right, siding with Satine. And yeah, ultimately I wanted Obi-Wan to meet him there too because I thought that was a nice ending. But yeah, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you want to see next. And I'll see you in the next video.